Hey guys, so as you all know, today we're going to be looking at a musical, and I figured there were some things I should probably go over before we get into it. First of all, yes, I actually have seen the stage version of this musical. I actually saw it in grade 12 with a bunch of my friends in Toronto. Personally, I found the story kinda weak and cliched. Secondly, anytime there's a musical number here, I'm going to be actually putting the name of the song down below in a subtitle. And finally, no. I will not be singing at any point in this review. As much as I'd like to, I feel like, from what I've seen, every time an internet critic reviews a musical, they decide to bust out a number from the musical itself. At the very least, I'd like to try something different by not playing to expectations. So without any further ado, change card! Let's get this started. Roll the intro.
You say you always keep your word. Show me what you're after. I thought you promised me the world. Tell me what you're after. Go on and take it way too far. 'Cause here we are, waiting once again. You say you always keep your word. Show me what you're after, just a little faster.
Hey, I'm the Hipster Ninja, saving fandoms one bad adaptation at a time. You know, as an adaptation reviewer, there are three kinds of movies that I dread. One of which is the musical adaptation.
While many musicals may be successful on stage, they don't tend to translate well to a 90 to 120 minute running time. The reason for this is that some points have to be cut, while others would have to be changed to make up for the running time.
And then there's what is known as the jukebox musical, where a guy essentially writes a story based on his iPod playlist. This can include musicals like Across the Universe, Mamma Mia, and of course, Moulin Rouge. Today, we're going to be looking at the most recent of these, Rock of Ages. Now, this is the point where I'd usually go into my spoiler-free summary, but, well...
The story is pretty generic, combining a high school romance involving 20-somethings for some strange reason, with a lame story about land developers wanting to tear down a popular establishment because they're assholes.
Of course, while a lot of elements were changed for reasons that I couldn't find during my initial research, the basic story kinda stays the same. So with all that out of the way, let's dive into it. This is Rock of Ages.
We open on a charter bus where one of our main characters, Sherry Christian, played by Julianne Hough, is looking through her suitcase at her vinyl collection. Also, did she just bring a bunch of records and a pair of sunglasses with her?
Lady, what about clothes? Deodorant? Other garments? You say you're moving to LA, and yet all you bring are records? Jeez, at least have the common sense to bring a spare pair of jeans!
Dumbass!
Anyways, after singing about having to leave home to make her dreams come true, she arrives at the Sunset Strip and starts singing about life in Los Angeles. We're also introduced to our other main character, Drew Boley, played by some dude from a crappy teen show that I don't particularly care for, preparing the bar he works at, the Bourbon Room, for a concert they're hosting that night. And we're unfortunately also introduced to one of the many banes of my existence. Shia LaBeouf?
No.
Ken Jeong?
No.
Kristen Stewart?
No.
We're introduced to Lonnie Barnett, who served as the narrator in the stage version, played by Russell Brand, as well as his boss, Dennis Dupree, played by Alec Baldwin.
And somehow I'm hating this movie more and more with every new character they introduce.
Anyways, we get your standard rom-com meet-cute between Drew and Sherry when a mugger steals her luggage.
No.
Are you okay?
Shit.
Did he take your money?
He took my records. Oh my god.
Yeah, he stole my easily replaceable records that I could find at any music store at the time.
Okay, I love my music collection as much as the next guy, but whether it's a CD or a 45, whether it's lost, broken, or stolen, they can easily be replaced.
Anyways, after some really poor attempts at comedy,
And somehow, I really don't think there's any other kind in this movie.
Jimmy, I told you 10,000 times, girls drink free, dudes pay full freight. They are dudes. Or like Michael Jackson. Doesn't he look pale to you? He does a bit. I guess we...
Drew convinces Dennis to hire Sherry as a waitress, and they begin to build a relationship as we cut to a press conference being held by Mayor Mike Whitmore, played by Bryan Cranston!
But you were in Malcolm in the Middle and Breaking Bad. You can't be in this movie. You're awesome.
He makes a speech about wanting to return Los Angeles to its former glory, and then passes the mic off to his wife Patricia, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones. She declares how she wants to clean up Los Angeles, and then goes into some spiel about how rock and roll is nothing but death, and crime, and the rage of a beast. We then cut to Drew and Sherry at a record store where they begin to bond over artists who recorded at the Bourbon Room, and then go into a musical number that was not in the original stage version, which not only hints at a relationship between Lonnie and Dennis, but also further forces the budding relationship between Drew and Sherry down our throats.
Okay, yeah, they did pull that love at first sight crap in the Broadway version as well, but I kinda like what they did here. They show them actually bonding and finding stuff they have in common. You know, like a real relationship.
So after that little number, Drew starts talking about how he has stage fright that keeps him from performing. I question how this can be, since not 5 minutes ago he was walking across the CD rack like he was friggin' Bret Michaels, but hey, this is a musical. Apparently like this happens all the time. Anyways, after Sherry gives Drew some performance tips, Drew decides that after spending a grand total of 10 minutes in the record store with her, he wants to ask her out, which she accepts, and we get some awkward high school. Meanwhile, Mayor Whitmore and his wife begin to exposit about how they plan on getting rid of the Sunset Strip, starting with the bourbon, and we cut to Dennis and Lonnie talking about how the bar's future is dependent on an unreliable musician. So Dennis calls his manager, Paul Gill, played by Paul Giamatti, and we're introduced to his client, Stacey Jacks, played by Tom Cruise. We then cut to a church in LA where Patricia rallies up the local religious groups to protest the Arsenal show at the Bourbon, claiming that Stacey Jacks is the devil, and how they will rid Los Angeles of its sex, drugs, and rock and roll image.
Bitch, please.
Hit Peril from Rock Smash, which you can find on leagueswordfish.webs.com.
The one and fucking only.
What the hell are you doing here?
I heard you were reviewing a movie based on rock and roll, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents.
Sure you can afford it with all that coke you do?
I'm gonna pretend that I didn't hear that.
Okay, so what is it you came for? Oh, wise and clearly coked up god of rock?
That's fucking better. Anyways, I was just going to say that it's going to take more than a bitchin' religious group to destroy rock and roll.
How about the near constant gleification of it?
That might do it.
Then welcome to Rock of Ages.
Oh, fuck this. I'm gonna go snort some more cocaine.
Chicken.
Anyways, Patricia then rallies the woman with an atrocious Pat Benatar cover, overcut with a scene of the mayor having an affair with his secretary.
Dude, seriously, do you know what happened to the last guy that did that?
I completely blacked out. I can't remember a thing. It wasn't until later, when I was washing the blood off my hands, I even knew they were dead.
I don't care how awesome you are, you do not with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Ugh. Fucking right! That bitch is insane!
Dude, do you want me to call a doctor?
Nah, I'm good. I've got one on standby.
After skipping through a soulless montage of Drew and Sherry preparing for their first date, and their forced backstories about how Drew's parents didn't understand him, while Sherry's grandmother supported her all the way.
Though the rules are almost reversed in the Broadway version, with Sherry having the unsupportive parents, and Drew just kinda moving to LA because.
Sherry and Drew cement their relationship, contrary to where he accidentally friend-zones her in the Broadway version, and then Sherry forces Drew to sing a song that he'd been working on for her.
A singer in a smoky room, the smell of wine, a cheap perfume. For a smile they can share the night. Then it goes on and on and on.
It's so beautiful, I can't believe you wrote that.
I know, right? It's almost like it was written by a completely different band.
Anyways, skip through yet another montage of Drew and Sherry's high school, and we cut back to the Bourbon, where Dennis, desperate to find an opener for the Arsenal concert, is convinced by Sherry to let Drew and his band, Wolfgang von Colt, open instead, which Drew is a little hesitant about playing due to his stage fright.
Guys, we're opening up for Arsenal.
That seems to have magically disappeared. How?
I mean, he played like once for Sherry, and now he has the balls to play in front of hundreds of crazy, possibly drunk and or high rock fans that are likely to throw at him if he f***s up.
Okay, I'm sorry, but stage fright doesn't work that way. Now, if he was a little more hesitant and, say, Sherry had to talk him into it, or maybe he performed in front of Dennis, who would tell him he was ready, like he did in the musical, I would buy him being a little more confident and thinking he was ready to open for a band like Arsenal. But here, it just seems really forced.
So after a cheesy-ass love song, Stacey Jacks arrives, gives some awkward dialogue that makes me wonder if Tom Cruise actually got high before they started filming.
When I'm done, we literally need to burn this place to the ground. Otherwise, the Fire Phoenix gets trapped.
Though I guess, given the character, it makes a twisted kind of sense.
And then gives an interview to a reporter named Constance, played by Marlene Ackerman. And I gotta say, I'm surprised at how well Tom Cruise can sing here.
It's all the same. Only the names would change.
But I'll get more into that in the post-review rundown.
After that, Sherry meets Stacy, who asks her for a bottle of scotch out of his limo.
Gee, I wonder if this is going to lead to an awkward misunderstanding between her, Drew, and Stacy. It's so subtle, I can't tell.
And after a lecture from Constance, he proceeds to, rock her like a hurricane. Constance, embarrassed about what she'd almost done, leaves his dressing room just as Sherry goes in with the scotch and accidentally breaks the bottle. She and Stacy then both walk out, past Drew, who's just about to go on stage to perform, and thinks they boned.
Despite the fact that there was nothing even remotely hinting that Sherry was anything but faithful to the little dick twat.
Anyways, Drew goes on stage and performs, impressing Paul. Sherry goes to congratulate Drew, but he acts like a paranoid douche nozzle and they break up.
Okay, in the musical this made more sense because Stacy and Sherry actually did knock boots in the bathroom. But here it just makes Drew look like an unsympathetic prick nugget.
Long story short, Sherry quits and becomes a waitress for a strip club owned by Justice Charlier, played by Mary J. Blige. Paul takes the profits from the night, putting the Bourbon's future in jeopardy, and then signs a management deal with Drew. Back at the bar, with the very real threat of being evicted, Dennis and Lonnie decide to confess their love for one another.
Baby, I can't fight this feeling anymore.
Meanwhile, at the Venus, Justice convinces Sherry to take the stage as a dancer, and the cast starts singing about giving people what they want.
How about a better musical?
We also get a quick cameo from former American Idol contestant Constantine Maroulis, who played Drew in the Broadway version.
Does he rap?
So with his dreams of being a rock star shattered, apparently by himself, Drew is forced to join a boy band called Z Guys. God, that sounds stupid. And Sherry becomes a dancer. Sometime later, the band is about to shoot a music video, and we get a cameo from Eli Roth of all people.
Though, I guess it fits. I mean, given all the music that's being butchered here.
Fed up, Drew asks Paul to book them a show, and he decides to set them up as an opener for Stacey Jacks' first solo show, at the Bourbon of all places that night.
Everybody got that?
Unfortunately, he's then confronted by Stacy and his bodyguards, and it turns out the interview he did for Rolling Stone, no less, mentions how Paul took all the profits from the Arsenal farewell show, and Stacy reacts in a tasteful manner.
You're fired, Paul.
That night, Sherry goes off to the Hollywood sign where she runs into Drew, and after finally revealing what happened after they both quit the Bourbon, he finally decides to ask about Sherry and Stacy. And Sherry finally sets the record straight for the little douchehole. Realizing how badly he screwed old Fido, he tries to apologize, but Sherry won't accept it and says that she's moving back home. This, of course, leads into the mopiest of montages, with everybody singing about how fame ruined them. Sherry's about to leave, but after some Moulin Rouge bullcrap from Justice about how she came to LA to find love, and Drew buying her every record that she signed her name on, which begs the question of why the record store didn't just make her buy them then and there, she decides to go off to the show anyways. Meanwhile, Stacy calls Rolling Stone magazine to talk to Constance, only to find out that Paul booked a gig behind his back.
He's an asshole.
Back to the Bourbon, we get a final confrontation between Lonnie and Patricia. But the song is interrupted when Stacy arrives and recognizes her, prompting Lonnie to grab an Arsenal album, revealing that she's featured on the cover in fetish attire. Back inside the Bourbon, Stacy makes up and out with Constance, while the Z-Guys, God, that name sounds stupid, begin their set, much to the irritation of the crowd. And me. However, after noticing Sherry in the crowd, he essentially runs off the stage, leaving the rest of his bandmates to fend for themselves.
He's an asshole.
Long story short, Drew and Sherry make up and out. Diesel and Heyman give Dennis back the money Paul took from the Arsenal show. Stacy and Constance make very violent whoopee in the bathroom. Paul gets his comeuppance. And Sherry reunites Wolfgang von Colt and saves the show with the oh-so-original song Drew wrote that Sherry and the rest of the band couldn't possibly have had enough time to fully compose and memorize before having to perform it on stage.
I know, musical.
Stacy hears the song while banging Constance, and we cut to 8 months later where Arsenal, Drew, Sherry, and the rest of the cast perform it to end out the movie.
And that's Rock of Ages. How is it? Ugh.
It's easily just as cliched as the Broadway version, and yet gets bogged down with immature humor and additional music numbers that were added in.
I'd also like to point out that I took a look at the theatrical cut, which clocks in at about 2 hours, as opposed to the extended cut, which adds an extra 15 minutes and 2 musical numbers. The reason for this is because the extended cut is on the Blu-ray, and my capture card only works for a standard DVD player.
Performance-wise, this cast was annoying as all hell, with the worst being Catherine Zeta-Jones, Russell Brand, and Tom Cruise, who were all really hamming it up in the worst possible way.
Everyone else was just kind of okay and didn't really turn out any kind of memorable performance.
Soundtrack-wise, well, I chalked this up as incidental music since the story was centered around these songs. However, singing-wise, everybody seemed to be pulling off somewhat okay performances, though any song that involved the 2 leads almost felt like it was being sung by the cast of Glee.
Hell, I could have sworn I heard some auto-tune at some points.
On the opposite end, the best performance vocal-wise came from Mary J. Blige, despite her over-singing in some parts. A huge pet peeve of mine, by the way. And yet, the 2 most surprising vocal performances came from Tom Cruise as Stacey Jacks and Russell Brand as Lonnie.
Yeah, I thought these guys, particularly Tom Cruise, were gonna end up like Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia, or Russell Crowe in the recent remake of Les Mis. But I'll admit, singing-wise, I found their performance quite surprising. Acting-wise, well, again, I just found them both really annoying.
It also goes without saying that they changed a lot from the Broadway musical, only keeping the bare-bones basic elements of the story to keep it somewhat similar.
All in all, if you like the musical, I guess you could enjoy this. But if, like me, you thought it was meh, well, you could either rent it or skip it altogether. All in all, my preference is going to be the Broadway version. So until next time, I'm the Hipster Ninja, saving fandoms one bad adaptation at a time.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling.